Irregular Miniatures Incredibly Fast Napoleonic Rules by Ian K. and Company. That would be Irregular Miniatures Company. Doing a rare daytime episode today. Got a belly full of pizza. Feeling pretty good. Hope you guys are feeling good too. Hope you're staying toasty, as at least for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere, the days grow short, the nights grow long, and hopefully you're getting a little more time at your Wargaming table. We are going to play through another episode. We did a introductory learning episode last time. This time, we're going to simplify things a little bit more. Last week, we did the Battle for Bumville 3, in which the French are trying to take Bumville from the British. We're going to do that again. Bear in mind, I've reversed this. I had to flip it upside down to make it a little easier to film. Those of you keeping score at home might be able to play it in... we're going to do this the Australian way. We're going to go Antipodean. Look, the French are heading north to try to take Bumville. It's an important crossroads town. A couple of forests. You can see those here and here. And as you can see, we've got 1 gun, 3 infantry, and 1 light cavalry for the British. Oddly enough, 5 units. We've got only 4 units of French. That complicates things a little bit. If you look at the way the order of battle works for... what is this game called? Absolute Emperor. Then what you find is that Boyd Bruce, the author of these rules, balances out the scenario by giving the French an edge in commander rating. Well, we don't have commander ratings in this rule set, so we have to compensate for that somehow. Notice that the edge in commander rating, 4 versus 3 to the Allies, is worth an entire seasoned infantry division. That's how much of an import Boyd puts on commander rating. So with the extra infantry division, you got a couple of choices here. One, you can remove this in one of these infantry divisions. Go 2v2 in the map. I'm going to do things a little bit different. I'm going to keep the same number of units so that my maneuver units are the same, but I'm going to tweak the ratings of these units with this numerical advantage, and in particular, given that these Allied forces, this infantry division is dug in like an Alabama tick, we're going to have to do something about that. And the something we're going to do is have the French show up with a couple of guard infantry. Now, they have a skill of 4 compared to the British seasoned infantry of 2. Again, that should be Allied forces. This could be on the Western Front, or on the Eastern Front. I don't know. Seasoned light cavalry versus a unit of dragoons. So the French now have a huge advantage in the abilities of their units. You know, we might have made these Russians, or I don't know. I think the Austrians fought pretty good on it. Fought toe-to-toe, right? On a man-for-man basis. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But here's the thing. Here's what I was looking at. At a minimum, if you use the points for Irregular Miniatures Incredibly Fast Napoleonics, this order of battle gives me 38 points to 33 for the British. So let's find out if these extra 5 points of troops will make a big difference in the options available to the French. One other thing I think is worth pointing out before we roll dice for the orders, command, and control phase of the first turn is that there's another variable you can tweak in order to balance a scenario. If this scenario for Absolute Emperor gave the French an even bigger advantage, then you could lop a couple of turns off. Oh yeah, you can definitely take them. Can you take them before nightfall? Maybe instead of 15 turns, you only get 12. That kind of balance really only works reliably when you've got a game like Absolute Emperor where it's a full I go, you go system. If you've got variable orders, order pips, as Incredibly Fast Play Napoleonics doesn't work quite as well because now you're putting a little bit too much faith in the dice to average out over the length of the turn. So we're not going to worry so much about turn length, although we will pay some attention to it. I'm going to keep track. And if we get up to like turn 15, 16, 17, and the French haven't broken, and we're kind of getting bored of the scenario, then, you know, maybe we just call it and decide who the victor is at that point. With all that said, let's go ahead and roll. The black dice will be for the French. And again, we only have 5 units over there. The French have 4. So the French are going to, both sides are only going to have 1 dice for their command pips. These rules don't use that verbiage, but DBM, DBA, they do. I defer to Warg. They set the standard for the nomenclature. We're going to go with it. It's fine. With a result of a 5, for the British, they can use all 5. And here's the key to that. The British, because these guys ain't moving nowhere, they want to roll a minimum of 4 so they can move their forces where they need to. These guys are not going to move, although they can rotate. Remember that the cannon has a 22.5 degree or 22 degree. If you know the difference between 22 and 22.5 on your wargame table, then this might be the wrong hobby for you. You might want to get into something like watchmaking. Be that as it may, we are going to allow pivots, and that's about it. Since they're not moving, there's really only 3 units that have any interest in moving about the table. So as long as they get a 3 or better, the British are going to be able to do everything they need to do. Notice that I have started this light cavalry division in a column, basically. The squadrons are arranged in columns, so they're going to be moving pretty quick. In fact, I'll show you here on the rules how quick they move. The top row is infantry, the bottom row is cavalry, and they do have rules for horse artillery. I don't really mess around with that a whole lot. So we're going to be treating those guys as though they're in column. One thing to be aware of is it takes half a move to move from column to line. So if we wanted to move these guys into line, I always use the formation that they start the turn in for their distance. You start in column, you can move 18. Well, okay, 9 if you're going to go to line, which they're not going to do. We are going to bring these guys swinging around, and so they're going to have to pivot, which is going to take about 4, and we're going to go all the way around these woods. For these first couple of moves, while we're just doing our maneuvering, I'm going to just move them, and then we'll bring the camera into position. Once the French get up close enough that I can set the camera on the table, there'll be a lot less likelihood for motion sickness. Notice that light cavalry is swinging around the side. If these guys get stuck in, the cavalry can hit them from the side. Delay, delay, delay is the order of the game for the British. They've moved both of their lines forward with, oh, you know what, though? Let me think about this. 1, 2, 3, 4. We talked about the French. They need to roll a minimum of 4 to move all of their units. Now, this guy, I started them right here at the edge of the table. See, there's the edge right there. And then in column, that's 12 centimeters, 12 centimeters. These guys moved their full allotment. Well, actually, they can move 12. But then they unlimber. So they're ready to start shooting now. They are just inside a range of the town. One thing I'm not crazy about this game, if you're in range for the guns, you're always in range. I kind of think it would be better for gameplay if they had some kind of a penalty for firing beyond, like this is 30 centimeters right now. If there was some kind of modifier for long range versus short. There is a modifier for extreme short for firing grape shot at trying to clear the field, but you know, whatever. It's not quite enough. I would like to see more incentive to bring these guns a little bit closer, but again, I'm not an expert at Napoleonic warfare. Maybe I'm way off base. The one thing I didn't do for the British move, they are going to kind of pivot like this because we're going to get into a little bit of a duel. Obviously, the horsies are going to try to get around and sweep these guys from the field, distract them so that these guys can get as close as possible. If these two can drive these two off and complete the pincher there, we are going to be in fine shape. The other thing we can do is we're going to use this gun for the French. We're going to try to soften up this foot unit. Again, I think this one unit is going to be stuck trying to delay these, so this division of guards is going to have to drive them from the field and then hit the town on their own. I don't know if that's going to work. The next phase is going to be artillery fire at ranges greater than 2 centimeters. Oh my goodness, I almost forgot. The British guns are 6-pounders. The French are 9-pounders. That's going to make a big difference because the British guns have a range of 24 centimeters. We may decide to leave these horses just outside of cannon fire range. See, there they are, 25 centimeters. I'm going to allow it. I know it's a bit of a retcon, but these guys are not stupid. They have a pretty good idea what the ranging fire is for these guys. We're going to stop them right there. Like, it'll be fine, okay? The French now are going to take a shot with their gun at this unit here. Bear in mind, this 6-pound gun has a shorter range and a little less, oomph behind it. Be that as it may, the French are going to fire here, and what you need to do is roll a d6, and you need to get less than the number of ranks. We need a 1 to hit these guys and do some damage to them. And it's morale, it's a combination. There's just one unit of damage, and that unit is the FDP. Biscotti is very happy over there. It's not my smoke alarm. The heavy gun has a -2 to the die roll, meaning on a 1, 2, or 3, we will do 1 point of damage. And a 5 means we don't. That's it for the artillery fire phase. Now we do close range firing, charge resolutions. None of that applies. We don't have any morale checks to make right now, so we're done with turn number 1. And that means we move on to turn number 2, where the French now get to move everybody. The British have to choose. Which 3 of your boys are you gonna move? And I think maybe the cannons have to spend a pip to rotate. I think that would be a good way to do that. At the conclusion of movement, the battlefield looks a little something like this. The British light cavalry has completed their sweeping motion. Next turn, they're probably going to want to form line. This time, the French infantry moved up. Now, they were in column, so they could move a total of 12 centimeters. They moved 6, formed line. They are at 6 and 6. These guys swung way wide, and that forces the British to choose, well, hey, you know what? They've got 3 order pips, so we can rotate these guys and just start blasting. Now, if we'd only rolled a 1, then we would have had to choose between the cannon and the light cavalry over on the other side of the ball field. We didn't roll a 1, we rolled at least a 2, and of course these guys are happy where they're at. They've got a clear line of retreat. All they need to do is enough damage to slow these guys down. That means we can go to cannon fire phase, and cannon fire phase means, if you take a look here, a little bit of bounce. Hey, look at that. We are in range. We're within 30 inches, so the French are going to fire first. Remember, they won the initiative roll. So again, we're going to roll a d6. We've got heavy guns. On a 1, 2, 3, we're going to do some damage. We roll a 1, and that means I need some damage markers. For the record, these are FDP, fatigue damage points. I'm going to refer to them as damage markers, hit points. I'm going to use every turn of phrase in the book. You'll be all right. The British now get to go. Here's the funny thing. They need a 1 to hit this cavalry unit. But the die roll has a -1 because they're firing at cavalry, and a -1 because they are a medium gun, and that's it. So again, we need a 1, 2, or a 3. We get a 3, and this cavalry unit now takes a damage point. And that's it for this turn. We are still beyond 2 centimeters. So we will roll for initiative for turn number 3. And with a 1 and a 1, I think the ties go to... I am going to give it to the attacker. This attacker is going to move. We need to try to sweep those guns from the field as fast as possible. If we change to line, that will cost 9 centimeters of movement, and this cavalry unit will wind up something like this. And that's going to be the only movement that they can do. The only movement that the British can do with their 1 pip is going to be to bring these guys up 9 centimeters, and they are going to form line. And that should look a little something like this. We're done with movement. Now we do cannon fire phase. And again, the French will be firing first. We're going to try to do another point of damage here, looking for a 1, 2, or 3. We'll call that a 1. And then this shot here will follow the same process. And with a 5, that's a miss. And that will end turn number 3. This is why I think the variable lengths is probably the way to go. Okay, things get interesting on this turn because these guys are facing a real conundrum. And here's what we're going to do. Well, first we'll start with 4 to 4. Ties go to the attacker. We're going to let the French move first. And that is good for the French because it means a couple of things. One, these guys are going to want to form square. I am going to bring them up 4.5 centimeters, and then we'll actually bring this guy up to the front, and then we'll do that. We're going to put him like that. We have a 3-sided square on this side of the table. On this side of the table, we can move the full 9. The French right flank is secure, so we're going to get into a shooting match, and there's not quite 2 centimeters, so that's going to be a problem. And then these cavalry now are going to charge home. Kind of. When you charge home, what really happens is you close to within 2 centimeters. And if we were playing with, obnoxious people, we'd have to measure that out. But we get it. We're 2 centimeters, all right? That's not the end of the movement. That's the end of the French movement. The British get to move now, and so so here's where things get interesting for the French. By forming square, these cavalry are no longer interested in charging home. But it does make them vulnerable to this unit right here. So this time I am going to measure a little more strangely there, a little more precisely, okay? And for the first time, I really feel like we've hit that classic conundrum. These are guard infantry, but they are being faced with both cavalry and infantry. The British are effecting the classic maneuver. Pin them in place with the cavalry and hit them. When your opponent has rock, paper, scissors, and he has to pick one, but you get to pick two of those, you get to pick one that's going to win eventually. But I guess the question is the timing, right? We'll get to that. Before we do, we have some cannon fire. The French are going to fire, and because these guys are so close, the guns are going to have to turn their attention on the village. And in this case, the village is only going to be hit on like a 1 or a 2 because they have hard cover. If you tally everything up, and I don't really understand what the effect is. Maybe it's only on a 1. You know, normally it's on a 1, but are these 2 ranks deep? If it's 2 ranks deep, it's on a 4 or better. I'm just going to give it a 1 or a 2. Okay, so every 3 turns, they're going to deliver 1 FDP, and I don't know that that's enough to really drive them from the field. I think that's a good way to complement the game. I think that's a good compromise where your guns can just pound them into smithereens, but they're not going to be able to win the battle on their own. When we get to the cannon fire phase, this cannon gets to fire. Well, we already did the French, so we're going to do the British cannon fire next. And the idea here is that the British medium guns will hit on a 3 or less. They get an extra turn to fire and do damage. With a 1, 2, or 3, that's just not going to happen this turn. And then the problem is we go to close range firing and charge resolution. When opposing units reach 2 centimeters, they issue fire and establish their will to charge. Match up the units, treat them as separate battlefronts. And this is not going to go well for the cannons. The French are going to be at, now normally it would be +6 because they're dragoons. They're at -1 because of this FDP. This die will be at +5. This die will be at +0. The artillery guys at this close range got nothing. That's not quite true. The medium guns are at +2 to the die roll, and then if they're British firing, they're at additional +1. So it's +5, +3. And we get a 10 and a 9, meaning the French have won, and they are able to close the gap. The British kind of got caught sleeping on those guns. These guys, too big a difference. Now we have a firefight that erupts between these two forces, and this gets a little bit more complicated. Remember that the British have quality of 2, and the French, I know I keep saying they should be allies, whatever. They're wearing red, they're red coats, they're the British today. So we're at 2 here, and we're at 4 here. But you get a +1 because the British are firing. You get a +1 because they're in line. No, it's +2 because they're in line. And they have no damage. And there's an additional +1 because they are shooting at square. That leads to a whopping +5 for the infantry firing at infantry in square. Again, just to go over that one more time. It's +1 for shooting at square, +1 because they're British, +2 because they're firing at guys that are in line, and then, oh my goodness, they actually have an additional +2 for their quality, so that is +6 for this die roll. Now this die roll is going to be at +6 because they are French, but I think that's it. That's it. So it's 6v6 on the shooting. So we roll those dice, find out who does better. The British win that one by 10-9, and that means, oh, you know what I forgot over here? Over here, when you fight, you actually suffer. Oh, no, it's melee. I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. All right, blam, blam. The British win, the French lose, but it doesn't matter. They're within 50% of each other. That means that either or both sides can charge home. If you are in square, you cannot move. That allows the British to slam home. These guys are not shooting. They can't charge home. They don't want to anyway. Cavalry get absolutely pasted, as you'd expect. So that's it for the shooting. Now we have to do the couple of melee. Over here, the artillery, they just run off. Artillerymen abandon their guns. Can the cavalry move? Can they continue to charge? I don't think so. I think that's it. But it occurs to me, I did this fight wrong. I should be using this die. This is an average die. 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. I should have rolled once for the British and added 6. They got a result of a 10. And then for the French and added 6 and they get a 10. So no real difference here, right? But the point is the infantry are much more reliable. A lot less swingy results. Now we have to do the same thing for hand-to-hand, but we have some difficulty here. Infantry attacking a square are at +3. That means this infantry unit will be at a total of +5. This infantry unit, right, so it's +3 because they're attacking square, +2 for the morale. These guys are at +6. So in this case, even though we've got line attacking a square, the French have an effective +1 on this. Now, you can't just use the +1 because the math doesn't work out. Remember, it's a proportional thing. So with the British rolling a total of 8 and the French rolling a total of 11, those are within 50% of each other. That means the British will be pushed back 3 centimeters, which is a little something like that. Then everybody that fired or fought melee, and this is something I think I did wrong last time, in that turn gets an FDP. That means we have one here, we have one here, and we have one here. Notice it's if you fire or fight in a melee. So if you do both of those, it's still only 1 fatigue point on the turn. That will be the end of turn number 4. We move on to turn number 5, rolling the same number of dice, and this time the British can do whatever they want with whoever they want, and I think the British are going to go ahead and just come up to, these guys I think are going to have to form square, because this cavalry unit is set to just absolutely pound them. So interestingly enough, in this game, the French, of course, will close to like this. And then this unit, I wonder if it doesn't make more sense for them to, now they're not going to be able, this is bad, this is ugly. I think the secret here is to pivot like so and go ahead and see what you can do about firing in. Now, we're not going to charge home. We don't have to. We might not have to. But I really think that the smart play here might be to bring the cavalry behind and add all of their weight to the line. I think if we were in that situation, I think that's the real deal breaker right there. Of course, the British are going to move up to 2 centimeters here. And maybe the way that this game should be working is that if you're faced with both of these, because let's just stop and analyze the situation for a minute here, shall we? If this just devolves into this fight, eventually the British might win. But remember, they are giving up 2 points of, I think I counted them as a 6. I think I should have counted them as a 4. They might not have routed back as far. I'll get that right this time. Well, I'm a hot mess, aren't I? Be that as it may, I think that what happens, we've got a 5 versus a 4. There's a slight advantage to the British. They're going to slowly whittle them down, but I kind of think that with the cavalry here, we may be able to treat them as a support. I think that might be the better way to do this. That if you're behind or within, or do we say, well, I mean, we're if you read the rules, remember it's only 1 page. Let's take a look. It says, support. Brigades within 1 centimeter to the rear of fighting friends may add half their morale and half their die roll rounded down. The only the factor that applies is -1 for FTP. So if we bring these guys, like how do you wheel them so that they're 1 centimeter away? Now it says 1 centimeter to the rear, but I kind of think that same thing should apply to flank attack. So if we bring them up like this, and likewise over here we got the flank attack, then maybe that's the way that works, or maybe I just need to bring these cavalry up. For the moment, let's just do it this way. We're just going to bring the cavalry up, and it's right, left, right, both sides are throwing that right hook. So it's going to balance out in the end, I think. So we're going to start with our firing from, and because the British won, it doesn't really matter for this phase, does it? So we'll start over here, and we'll do firing here, 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 and here. So we actually have 4 of these. No, we don't. We got to do our cannon fire phase first. Anybody exhausted? Nope. Okay. So the French are going to fire at the town, and with the result of a 3, they will do 1 fatigue point. Finally got them. All right, now we can do this shooting combat here. Taking a second look at the way this works, I want to start over here, and I think the best way to handle a situation like this is to treat the cavalry or the line as support. Remember, we're supposed to treat this as individual battles per the rules. And I'm struggling a little bit to reconcile my understanding of how this situation would play out in the real life versus what it says in the rules themselves. And I think rather than fighting 2 different battles, this should be treated as one firefight. Because the British won, they get to choose who the firefight is going to be with. If the French had won, they could say, well, we're going to do this one, and they count as support. But in this case, the British say, no, I want to treat this as the firefight with the cavalry in support, and because they're within 2 centimeters, and I think this is appropriate. It's got to be really chilling to be facing down. Like, these guys are probably feeling pretty good about life. Those cavalry can't get through our defenses. These guys are outnumbered 3-1. At a square, it would be 4-1, right? So they're not liking life at all. And when they start fading back, that's going to affect these guys' morale. So all that said, I think what we have to do is we have to say we're going to treat it as these guys versus these guys, the infantry with the cavalry in support. And what that means is I'm only going to give these guys +1. The only support that these guys offer is their die roll plus their morale, their skill, their elan of 4. So we roll for these guys, and it's half of that. So at 9, they're going to be adding 4. And that means that the real fight is going to be between these guys and these guys. But these British get an extra +4, which is going to be devastating because they're already at +4. They're already at +1 because they're firing at square, so that puts them at 5. They're at 6 because they're British. They are in line, so that's 7, 8. And then they are, we got to subtract 1, so they're back to 7. But they are also quality 2, so they're back up to 9. So +9 to the British. And the British are going to score a total of 13. The French are at a total of +3. So 13 to 6 means we doubled them up. And this is why I wanted to specify who is attacking who. With the double up, that means they are going to rout. They have 1 chance to rally, but first, we have to roll the unit's die. They are going to have 4. So they're going to rout 4 centimeters plus their regular move, but wait a minute, they're in square. What does their regular move mean if they're in square? Do they have to change formations? I don't understand. It says any infantry which sees, let's see, if one total is 100%, that force is routed. And then for routing movement, it's half the move plus the roll of the die. If a brigade's opponent's rout, the player rolls against victorious brigade's FDP to see if he pursues. Well, if you roll less than or equal to, he must pursue. These guys won't, so they're not going to pursue. These guys will pursue on a roll of but they have to roll this, right? So they only have 1. They're not going to pursue. So these guys are just going to hunker down and stand tight. These guys are going to rout the 4 plus 0, and that's what it is. But squares can't move. So how far do they rout? I assume they stay in formation, and we'll bring this guy back 4 centimeters to here. And then that's going to be it. Don't get cocky, British, because we still have to do this battle over here, and the same thing is going to apply. Now, here we have dragoons in support of the infantry. So the dragoons are only going to be at 4. Add their die, they get a 6. So that means we're going to be at +5 for the French, who are also guard infantry. That puts them at +9. And they're in line, so that's +11. And their target is a square. That puts them at +12. So their total result is going to be a 16. The British square is going to result in So we had 16 for 5-6 for the quality, plus 1 for being British. So that's 7. Even if they had one more that I'm missing here, target is maybe you give them a +1 because they're firing at the cavalry, but it's still 8 to 16. These guys now are going to route. The die roll distance, so that's going to be 3 centimeters for them, and I think they have to route 3 centimeters in this direction. Then what happens is we roll to see if they pursue, and on a 1 or a 2 they must. So on a 1 they do. They're going to chase after, and they're going to make contact with those foot. And I think that's going to be it for the turn, except you do have tests for routes. An infantry brigade which sees a friendly infantry brigade of equal or lesser will route within 10 centimeters, rolls against its own FDP. On a 1, these guys will give up the town. And they do. They are going to route. They are, we'll call them in square, they're going to leave the town. And then we already rolled and moved these guys. We already checked, so that's about, oh, except these guys might also route because they're within 10 centimeters of here. So we roll their die, and oh, look, they don't have any FDP. They're going to roll greater. They're going to be just fine. Oh, maybe I should have rolled this for the guys in town. This is the die they roll. Yeah, so that's true. That's a great point. Because we can't roll a 1, they have to take at least 2. Oh, that's interesting. That's why the infantry, what a clever little mechanic. The infantry are less likely to route because you have to do at least 2 FDP before, well, they're less likely to route when they see a friend run away compared to the cavalry. All right, now we're done. Now everybody that participated, everybody gets a prize. Everybody gets a little red toy to call their own because everybody participated either in the shooting or in the racing. If one total's less, that is routed. I don't know, do these guys get to route? Because I could totally see wanting to get into melee contact like so. I don't know about that. But what I do know is it's time to roll for initiative. And the French have it 4-3. So what are the French going to do? Oh, I think maybe this is where you roll greater than your FDPs, you rally. So we roll. I forgot to do that for these guys. These guys routed, these guys routed. These guys will rally automatically. These guys just don't get a 2. Okay, they did. So everybody's rallied and everybody's capable of maneuvering. The French gun is going to use one of these pips to pivot so it can fire at these cavalry now. Their line of sight is completely blocked in that direction. And that might be the only thing we want to do. No, these guys can pivot 6 and close to within 2, but I think because they're already in melee, do we decide that these guys can now close to melee range? If you're locked in melee, you're not doing the 2 centimeters. So I think that's the only motion that we're going to have, unless we pivot these guys and make this explicit now. Let's do that. Let's move them up to 6. And we're going to do the thing that we meant that we were struggling with before. We're going to have the cavalry in support of the infantry like so. And we'll still allow the shot for the cannon. They're going to get a result of 3. That's going to do 1 more fatigue point here. And now we do our firing. And let's do, the only firing we have is here. Although, could we fire here? These guys are within 2 centimeters. And this is where a judge would come in handy. I think we can. We're going to do a little firing combat there. The Dragoons are going to be at, well, no, because the Dragoons are in melee, so they're not going to fire in melee. They don't want to risk hitting their own pals. So we'll start here with the firing, and it's going to be so here's what I'm doing. I'm rolling the 2 white dice and the black die, and then we'll just tally everything up and figure it out. The light cavalry are going to get a total result of, this is 1, 5, 4, 3. So they're only going to be adding like 1 or 2. And I don't know if it matters at this point. The infantry, well, no, it does matter. Let's figure this out. They're at half, so it's going to be rounded. Does it say? Oh, it's rounded down. Okay, so 1 point. So the British have an extra +1. That's going to put them at a total of Well, they got 0 because 2 minus 2. Okay. So they're going to be at 1, 2, 3, 4. And I think that's it. They're going to be at 4. So that's going to be a total result of 8, 9 for the British. The French are going to roll a 5, and they're going to add their 4, subtracting 2. They're going to get 7. We are within 50%, so the charge slams home. And now we've got cavalry in support of the melee, and the same benefits will accrue. So let's just keep it rolling, fellas. Let's see what happens when we roll this melee. I'm going to rule, so the only support that this cavalry is providing is the D6. Is terrible. So +1 to the melee roll. And that means these guys are going to be at, well, hold on. Okay, so that's going to be a total of 3. And 4 because we're charging. And 5, 6, 7 because we're attacking a square. And then, so wow, see, this is where the FDP start coming in. Let's apply those last. This would be 5. We're adding 2. Oh, 3, right. So it's 1. And then it's going to be 2. 0. So it's just a result of like 3. Wow, these French are really... Oh, but oh no, we got to roll this for the French. So the French roll a 5. And that's going to be a total of 9, 7. So 3 to 7. I think the French square just beat off an attack. That does not sound right to me at all. Yeah, I think that's right. I think the British got a total of 6. And the French are going to get a total of 7. Do they have any other penalties? That's it. Yeah, 7. So the French have successfully pushed these guys back. And one of the intriguing things, and I don't think this works, to be honest with you, is that at the end of the day, so you've got 2 units, because they won, each of the units that they fought gets another FDP as long as this French square continues to hold out. The negatives are piling up for the French. They're not going to be able to withstand that. Now, it wasn't a doubling up. It was a 3 to... Oh, it was a doubling up, wasn't it? The French got a total of 6 to 3 over here. That means these guys are going to be pushed back 3 centimeters. No, they're rout. So we got to roll this. They're only going to route 2 centimeters. Okay. Oh, plus half their normal move, which is... in open, that's going to be 12. So they're actually going to push back like 8 centimeters. It's not, well, is it going to matter? Maybe it does. So I'll push them back to the woods. They stop at the wood line because they are cavalry. Whatever, it's fine. Do you want me to measure it? Look, there's 8. We did it. Okay, now over here we have the same situation. And we'll see if we can do it without all of the stuttering and struggling. The cavalry support with a total of 3 plus their die, 7. So that's a 7. They're going to be adding 3 to the melee roll. Maybe we should cut that in half because they're attacking a square. I don't think so, though. I think this is a reasonable assumption. So 3 plus the FDP, that becomes a 2. Then we add the 4, that's 8. So we add 8. And then because they're attacking a square, there's 3 more. So we're going to add 11 to this. They get a 15. The British force is going to get a 4, 5, 6, 5, 18. So they are going to be doubled up. They're going to rout again. And that's going to push them back 4 plus half their movement. I forgot that. Oh, but they're in square. So they're only going to get pushed back 4 centimeters. Like so. And then that's going to be, well, we have to roll. Do these guys follow up? And on a 4, they don't. And then these guys, they only have the 1, so they're not going to pursue. What about these guys? They'll pursue on a 1, 2, or 3. Wait a minute. But they actually, that's on a 1 or a 2. But wait a minute. They're in square. Does that mean that they move the result of they pursue. What does it say? It says, and of course the other thing is we got to check the route. Do these guys route? On a 1, 2, or 3, they do because they're within 10 centimeters. They do. And on a 1, 2, or 3, these guys do. So they don't. But what does it mean when these guys route through here? Well, these guys have to make another check. On 1 or a 2, they fail. So this side all routes off. And through the woods is going to slow them by half. I think we got to bring these guys back. They are cavalry. They're going to, in line, means they're going to race another 7.5 centimeters away, which will put them like right here in the woods. These guys are going to race. They're in line. It's going to be because they failed. Oh, you know what? You only have one chance to recover from a route. Because they routed backwards and failed those rolls, these guys are driven from the table. That's what it is. Which leaves the British with 1 square blocking the approaches to town. We roll for initiative. And the British are going to get the initiative. All the French can do is 1 unit, and that's going to be these guys. They are going to form line, and we're going to bring them up into the attack. When you start in square, you move 0. Well, that doesn't make any sense. So again, there's a lot of things about this rule. I really could use a second page, Ian. I got to be honest with you. I'm not great at this. So with the 6, we'll bring them up to here, and then we're going to bring these guys back. And we're gonna bring these guys back, and we're gonna haul them back at half of their. Oh no! You know what? We've only got 1 guy that can move, so these guys are all gonna have to stay right where they're at, and that means that the horses. Here's one of the things that your horses are hard to control. They're gonna attack the town on their own. I don't know about that, guys. I don't know that really. That doesn't seem appropriate to me. So if we only have 1 unit that can attack, we're going to bring these guys up, and I guess we have 1 fighting over there. We start by shooting, and the cavalry are going to wind up with so the cavalry are assaulting the town. And they're going to wind up with a total result of 2 plus their 6, so that's going to be a result of an 8. 9, 10 for the cavalry. Except that they are firing at hard cover, which means they have a total score of 8. With a 4, 5, 6, 7, then 1, 6. That means the cavalry are going to be able to slam home, and they're going to assault the town. They just got so excited by having won something. Are we within 2 centimeters? We're beyond 2 for both of those guys, and that means we have to fight a cavalry battle against the town, and the enemy is in hard cover, so we're at a total of -6 plus 6, so that's just going to be a straight die roll for the horsies. We get a result of a 5. The guys in the town are going to be, I think we'll call it that's going to be a total of a 6 because they are cavalry in line. Then it's going to be cavalry versus infantry in square. So minus an additional 6. They get a result of a 0. And the guys in the town are going to be, I guess, do we count that as being in a square? Whatever it is, they're going to win. They're going to double up and they're going to rout these cavalry. Yeah, what did you think was going to happen, guys? So they got to retreat the 13 centimeters. And both sides now are going to get a fatigue point. So 5 and 2. And that's going to be it for the turn. The cavalry have to, before I roll initiative, the cavalry are going to try to recover, and they're not, so the cavalry are going to be driven off. Hey, we tried, but it just wasn't meant to happen. Now the French infantry, well, first we roll for initiative, and the French are going to lose out. We're going to form line, and now we have a situation where the French are going to be able to move 2, and we're going to wheel these guys up to within 1. So that's going to result in, we've got 2 dice. So that's going to be a 3 and a 3. Well, okay, so this is 3, 2, 1, plus the 4, that's 5. That's an additional plus 2 to this die roll. So 2, that negates this. We're at 4, 7 for the British. So the British have 7. 8, 9 because they're in line. So 9 to the British. They're to the French. And the British are going to roll, let me re-roll that. They're going to roll a 4. Becomes a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 to 9. And the British are going to come drive home. So we are going to be doing a little bit more infantry on infantry. And for the infantry on infantry, it's going to be, we will add the result of a 3, 7, 5. It's going to add 2 to the dice roll here for the French. So 2 plus 4, that's going to be 6. Oh, but minus 2. Oh, those 2 are here. So we're at a total of 2. We're adding 2 to this die roll, so that's a 6. Becomes a 4 because we have to subtract these 2. Then it becomes 8, and I think that's it. 8, and that's it. Yep, 8. Okay. Then the British are going to get a 3, 4, 5, 4. They're going to rout, and they're going to be pushed back. And I think they should actually have another one of these because they routed last time. But they are going to be pushed back. And because they're in line, it's going to be half of their line movement, which is 12. So they're going to retreat 9 centimeters to here. And they have 1 chance to try to roll less than a 2 on a 5. They will rally. I don't know what that means, to be honest with you. But we'll tighten it up a little bit more, and we'll roll for initiative. The cannon is slowly trying to get into position so we can bombard this town a little more, but it's not going to happen. With the result of a 5, the British will hustle up. Oh, you know what I forgot? Let's go ahead and dump some fatigue points on. Bing, bang, boom. And I really think this mechanic doesn't work. I don't know that I'm going to play this game again. First, we roll for the support. They get their 4. Plus 4 is 8. Minus 3 is 5. So it's going to be 2.5. Well, they are going to add 2 to the die roll for the French. And this time the French roll a 5, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 because they're in line. 13. So they get a total of a 10 this time. So 10 to the French. And the British are going to get a 5, 6, 7 for line, 8 because they're British, 9, 10 because they're in line, and then they are going to be at minus 3, which will be 7. So we'll drive home, and we will fight another melee battle, which, again, will be for the support. We're only going to be lending 4, 5, 6, 3. We're only going to be lending 1 this time. We roll 4. So that wipes that out, and we're just left with our boys in line for a total score of 4 for the French. And the British are going to roll 2, 3, 4 for their ability, and then 1, 2, 3. So they are driven back, and they rout once again. They have to roll a 1, 2, or a 3. They fail, and that means they will leave the battlefield. But now we've got 2 weakened units left to assault the town. They're getting tired, and they're going to get to move first. We rolled 2, so we are going to bring them up to the final attack. And, you know, this time we're close enough. I think maybe we'll switch to attack column with the support. We're close enough. When we're in line, we're within 6 centimeters of it, so that's what we're going to do. Now, we are firing. We're not in line. So on the shooting phase, these guys, they are going to lend 2. They're going to lend 1 to the shooting phase, because we still have to do that shooting phase. Okay, so we're going to lend 1. And we roll for shooting, and we get a 3. Oh, but so the 1 and the 3 cancel out, and we're just left with our morale score of 4, our effectiveness of 4. And that's going to be it for the French. The British are going to get a 4, but they're in square, I think. I think that they, well, let's see, they get a 4, 5, 6, subtract these 2. That means they're going to result in a 4, 5. And then, oh, I forgot about the hardcover. We got to subtract a couple more. I think it's going to be close enough that these guys will slam home, and we're going to fight. Like, it's going to be within the 50% to allow for a melee. So we roll for our support first, as usual. That was a 4. So 4 minus 4 means we get a result of 4 from the morale. That means we're adding 2 to the die roll for the British. The British score a 7, 11. They are in column, so that's going to be 13, Charging hardcover becomes an 11 minus the 4 means the total tally for the French is a 7. The British are going to roll a 2, subtract these 2, add these 2, that's going to be a 2, and that's really ultimately what's going to happen here is going to be a total of 2 to, I think it was like 7 over here. So these guys are going to retreat out of the town, and the French, with a final last push, are going to be able to take Bumville. But there's things about this game that just don't sit right with me. I think that result where the square was able to withstand 2 full turns of both a line infantry and cavalry hitting them at the same time, it's a little awkward because I just don't like the way it works, and I don't understand it, and I don't like things I don't understand. So don't expect this game to be played anymore because it's a bloody hot mess. And maybe if we had multiple players with multiple divisions going up against each other, I think this would probably work a lot better. So until I find a better rule set, honestly, I think now that I've played another one, I think my go-to for this scale is going to be 2x2 Napoleonics. I think Rod Humble really nailed it. He nailed the feel of pushing large divisions around a map. But this incredibly fast play, again, leaves me with a video that's almost an hour long. That incredibly fast play. I want my $1 back. I'm kidding. It's a fine set of rules. Go to Irregular Miniatures. That's where the miniatures come from. All these tiny little grains of rice, these 2mm figures, complete with flags. Let's take a really good look at those guys. They're great. Don't be afraid. Those are just little rocks that I painted black. Look at those guys. Look at the little horsies. They're tiny little horsies. I love it. Love this scale. Love you guys. Thanks for coming along for the ride. Till next time, I'm praying for you.